So as we come to the conclusion of this course, we're now looking at the path of education and where do we go from here? How can we continue remaining productive and progressing through these skills to learn technical analysis and become a better investor or trader? So the question I often get is how long until I'm a profitable trader after taking your course? And that's just a question that is literally impossible to answer because the individual varies so much from one person to the next, not only in terms of, how much time can you put in? Do you have a full-time job? Do you have a family? But also with regards to how well you are able to retain information, how you can apply that, what's your emotional control like? We're all starting from different levels in this psychological game that we're looking to play here, and that's going to determine, how long it takes. Again, the biggest factor is how much time you're putting in. So if you have a full-time job and a family and you're only putting in 3 hours a week, it's going to take you a lot longer than someone like me who was, fresh out of college, 22 years old, and put in 4 months in a row every single day, 10 hours a day, full-time learning this stuff. That was a fast learning curve as opposed to someone who's going to have to balance it with life. So it all depends on the individual situation, but what we can all look to do is establish a goal and make it realistic. We're not going to say, I'm looking to be a full-time trader after putting in 3 hours a week for a couple months. That's just not going to happen. So establish the goal. If you have a full-time job and a family, perhaps your goal is, I want to learn technical analysis so I can have a better understanding on my long-term investment portfolios and have a little bit of protection in case we see long-term trends change. That's a perfectly reasonable goal, and you can absolutely accomplish that. And you then need to write out the steps and get on the path to achieving it one step at a time. For further education from this point on, we have the entries and exits course. Some of you have already taken that. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on that. And that's more applying this information to actually placing trades and knowing when to look to enter and exit. But obviously don't want to just say, buy our stuff, because there is plenty of free information out there on the internet. There's some pluses and minuses for free versus paid information and the services that are out there. Obviously, for free services, it's free. That's a big bonus. The downsides are it's overwhelming. There's a huge amount of that information out there, and it can really slow down the learning curve as you go through all these things. I have to study Ichi clouds, and I have to study Fibonacci, and I need to study Elliott wave, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Whereas if you have a mentor or a paid service, that's really just trying to speed up the learning curve, where I can say, hey, I've made these mistakes. This is what's worked for me. This is what did not work for me, and try to speed up that learning curve. Paid services, obviously the risk are being dishonest and not being good traders. That's a risk. But let's just assume, for argument's sake, that the mentor is a good trader and has a good service. Obviously, the downsides are it's going to cost you some money, but the positives are that it's going to significantly speed up that learning curve, and it's going to allow you to interact with people and answer a lot of questions whenever you have them. So for me personally, when we started the Chart Guys, I had never traded commodities. I didn't know what an inventory report was for oil. And within 2 weeks of talking with other members and people that have traded those things in the past, I was able to pick it up very easily. And now I trade commodities very often. So having just a shared pool of brain power with everybody having the same goal of helping each other and sharing information, that's invaluable in my opinion. And that's well worth the money when trying to speed up that learning curve. So once we have our goal established, we need to ensure that we have the motivation, dedication, and hustle to work towards that goal. Motivation is very important, but you have to make sure it's the right kind of motivation. Because to say, I want money, this is my vehicle to get to money, and I'm just going to put my head down and do this so that I can have money in the end. That's not the right way to go about things. We have to ensure that we have a passion for technical analysis and trading and that we really enjoy doing it. Because if you're doing something for 10,000 plus hours consistently and long term, you're going to go insane if you don't enjoy it. That's not the goal of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to have financial independence and freedom to do what we enjoy doing, and we have to ensure that technical analysis and trading is part of that. Dedication, again, this is a time commitment. We cannot anticipate to just put in a couple months of learning and expect to have this down. A lot of people, most people fail as traders, and in my opinion, that's due to a lack of education and it's due to a lack of dedication. For me, it took 2 to 4 years before I was confident that I could do this for long-term sustainable income, and it's really just it probably took about 5 years before I was, certain, unless we have a drastic change in how markets work in the world because of, artificial learning or something along those lines. I can do this for the rest of my life. And that took me 5 years to get to that point. That's a long time. That was well over 10,000 hours at that point. So just keep in mind that this is a long-term game, and if it were easy, everybody would do it, and it is certainly not easy. Hustle. We have to ensure that we're putting forth our best effort. For me personally, I feel that I have an edge as a trader because I'm just outworking the vast majority of people. I've been eating, sleeping, and breathing trading and technical analysis for 3.5 years, to a point that some people would probably call it sick in the head, and I wouldn't argue with them. And that is my edge as a trader. That's how I stay one step ahead of the herd. It's not necessary to do that always, but if I want to be on my A game and I want to be my best, I'm going to be putting in more effort, waking up before the sun on weekends and out hustling my peers. So varying levels of dedication match with your goals. Again, that's just being realistic with yourself. You're not going to be a full-time trader if you're putting in a couple hours a week. Just accept that you have to adjust your game plan to perhaps looking at longer-term portfolios management. And again, this is the kind of information that you can apply to any kind of time frame, any kind of situation. So it's not like it's wasted learning. If I don't become a full-time trader and quit my job, I'm a failure. No, because this information can be applied while you have a full-time job to managing your 401k, and it's allowing you to have some say in your financial future and not just entrust it to someone and say, here's my money, do your thing. I don't understand this stuff. Book learning versus emotional and psychological learning. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is where book learning is the easy part. This course was the vast majority of book learning with just, memorization and time. It takes time. It's a lot of information, no doubt about that, but it's very easy after a certain amount of time to absorb this information. So it's the psychological and emotional learning that is the hard part, where we lose the most amount of people from becoming traders, in my opinion. And that is where we have to ensure, and again, keep yourself in check. You have to be honest with yourself and be real and get to know your ego. If you have trouble putting stop losses and risking or managing the risk of your trade, that's going to tell you that you might have an addictive personality. You might have a potential little gambling problem. There are people that lose their entire accounts because they have gambling problems. You have to recognize in yourself, I know what I should be doing and I'm not doing it time and time and time again, and I'm losing because of it. That's a huge red flag that you need to stop trading with real money and either just go to paper trading until you can prove to yourself that you can have some discipline, or just stop trading. Again, trading is not for everybody. I want to be very clear with that. And we have to be able to recognize that within ourselves if we're unable to stay disciplined. I would say lack of discipline is the number one indicator that you should not be trading. Books. So I'm not a book learner. I've never read a technical analysis or trading book. I've read parts of Trading in the Zone, but certainly from our community, it's very clear that this is the lead book, the lead winner in terms of anybody asking, what book should I read? In terms of psychology and trading, Trading in the Zone is the one to look at. I believe it's by Mark Douglas or Michael Douglas, but that would be one that I recommend. If you are a book learner, then by all means do further research and find some books that you can, read in your leisure time and be continuing that path to education even when you're away from the computer screen. So mindset is extremely important. I'm the kind of person that is a firm believer that our inner thoughts and energetics have a direct impact on the external reality around us. So if I'm the kind of person that's constantly beating up on myself and saying, oh man, I did this wrong and I'm never going to get it and I made that dumb mistake again, that is ensuring a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's almost like just adding weights on a marathon runner, making the journey more difficult. We need to understand that trading is not for everybody. That's obvious. We need to remind ourselves that. The vast majority of traders fail. In my opinion, that's due to a lack of education, and that's due to a lack of understanding of emotional and psychological forces at play in the markets, and it's due to a lack of discipline. Those are probably the most significant reasons, but trading is for a lot of people, and you have to give yourself the chance to experience technical analysis and trading and see if this is something that you can utilize. Again, it's not going to be wasted time. If you find out, I can't be a day trader, I can't stare at the screen this long, that's great, but you can still utilize this information in your long-term holdings and have a much more passive utilization of technical analysis, but still know a lot more than the vast majority of individuals who entrust their retirement funds and long-term holdings to financial advisors to do everything for them. Whereas if you can recognize a trend change, you can act on that and make decisions on your own and take a little bit of control with your financial future. So an example for mindset and positivity, let's say I entered a trade and I sold for some profit and it just kept running and the bulls kept going. Now I could look at that and say, oh man, what an idiot. I sold too soon. I could have made this many dollars. It would have been a week maker. I always sell too soon. Or I could say, wow, I had a really good entry and the bulls showed up like I thought they would. They just had more follow through than I thought they would. I sold too early. How can I utilize this information and learn from it and not sell too early next time? Maybe I adjust my stop loss lower. Maybe I use a trailing stop. So that's two completely different ways of looking at the same situation. One is going to ensure that you take a step forward and have a solid learning experience from a mistake, and the other is going to put you in a negative mindset and probably make you feel really bad, and you're not going to learn a whole lot from it. So you must believe in yourself to give yourself the chance at making this happen. When we started the Chart Guys 3.5 years ago, there would be, skeptics of technical analysis, and I used to waste time like a fool trying to convince people that technical analysis is real and that it can work. And then I quickly realized the people that are doubting technical analysis, it will never work for those people. If you don't believe it's going to work, of course it's not going to work, because you're not putting in the time and effort into something that you feel will be worthwhile in the end. So again, mindset is so extremely important, and we have to ensure that we're staying in a healthy and positive mindset, but we have to ensure that we're keeping ourselves in check. This is difficult. It takes a lot of time, and it releases endorphins. It is a drug to a certain degree. It is a place where people with addictive personalities can get into a lot of trouble. Just like anything, any kind of substance, anything that releases dopamine in your brain, like a winning trade can do, if we cannot keep that in check, we have to recognize that within ourselves and stop ourselves from making any kind of disastrous decisions financially. So this course is stepping block number 1 to learning technical analysis and developing the skills to make yourself a better trader. From here, it's all about going to the next step and looking towards what your goal is and having that shape what your next step is.